Thank you so much. Thank you. So I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday named Kevin, and as I was driving here to Raleigh for the NSA speech, and Kevin's a speaker also. He lives in Florida, and he is not a member of the National Speakers Association. And he asked me this interesting question. He says, David, why do you waste your time going to the NSA meetings in the first place? How do you respond to a question like that? So Kevin had me thinking about a lot of things, actually. And I did ask myself, why do I go to the NSA meetings? You know, there's a reason why all of us do the things we do. And if you're here today, there's a specific reason that you chose to be here today. Thinking about reasons on why we do things, it reminds me of good old Scott McAllister. Yeah, Scott McAllister. I can't figure out what brought him into my office on that day a few years ago. See, Scott's a banker. He's been a banker since the early 1990s, and he barged into my office one day and said, "Are you that guy?" Excuse me? Are you that sage guy, that high-performance communication guy that I keep hearing about? Well, I guess that's what some people call me, sure. Well, I've heard that you work with companies and you help take their job descriptions and you repackage them in a way so that they can attract the best talent. Well, that's part of what I do, but I do a lot of other things. David, I want to hire you to repackage me, to retell my career story and rewrite my resume in such a way that I can be attracted to some of the best companies out there. Don't you love a client like Scott? Scott, so enthusiastic. We decided we'd work together that day, and normally I don't just dive into a project. See, I want to interview the human being behind the resume and understand a little bit about them. So let me tell you about Scott a little bit. So Scott's got this John Travolta thing working, right? So he looks a little bit like John Travolta. Not like the John Travolta you think of. Not that John Travolta. Kind of the older, more mature John Travolta, like from Pulp Fiction, except without the long hair. And one of the first things I learned about Scott is that he was an Eagle Scout when he was younger. Pretty cool. And I don't know why I asked him the next question. But when I did, his shoulders slumped, his head fell down. And I simply asked him, Scott, how did you do in college? I mean, academically speaking. Dave, I didn't do that well in college. I was in a frat, but my grades weren't that good. I don't normally tell this story, but I'm feeling compelled to tell it to you right now. See, Dave, when I was in college, I had a brother. He was 20 years old. We were like twins. We were 12 months apart. My brother was on the same college campus I was on. In fact, we were in the same frat. On the night my brother died, I was driving the car. We weren't doing anything wrong. See, a semi-truck went 18 inches over the yellow line. And back then in the 70s, nobody wore seatbelts even though cars had them. And my brother died instantly when he hit the windshield. Me, I was the lucky one. See, the car engine actually pierced the firewall and landed on my lap. And I sustained a number of injuries, including I broke my femur bone, which is the longest bone in the human body. It connects the knee and the hip. Wow, Scott, man. Wow. I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm looking at you and you look so fit, and I never would have guessed you'd gone through a tragedy like this. How did you get over it? A lot of determination, persistence, a lot of pain, frankly. I finally healed, moved on with my life, and you know, I'm healthy today. I'm perfectly healthy. You know, as Scott was talking, you know what I realized? I had just met the real Scott McAllister. Right? This accident did not define Scott, but the way he responded did define him. And you know what the irony is? The people who are interviewing, the people who are reading his resume, the people that are hiring, they don't see the real Scott McAllister. You know what they see? They see a banker, a well-dressed banker, with fine credentials. Sadly, no different than every other well-dressed banker with fine credentials. A couple weeks later, we finished his resume, and we made one small change. on his resume. We added 6 words at the top of his resume. Those words were resilient under conditions of extreme adversity. All we were trying to do is get people to invite the question, well, Scott, what does that mean? And all we wanted to do is have Scott tell that story, not in a heavy way, of course, but in a succinct and professional and unemotional way. Scott got a job 3 months later. See, there was a reason I was there that day. I was there to awaken Scott's professional soul. I took something that was pain, that hurt inside, and I turned it into a professional strength. We woke his professional soul. And that one small change made all the difference, profound difference in Scott's career. I can't help but think what one small change you can make today at the NSA meeting. Great thing about Scott, I was there to awaken his professional soul, but he was there for a reason too. See, that's not the end of the story. That's the best part. See, Scott didn't know when he was telling me about his tragedy, he didn't know that I was going through a personal tragedy during that time. The tragedy of divorce. And even though 50% of marriages end in divorce, I felt like I was the only person who could experience the pain and the anguish and the suffering during that time. What Scott didn't know is that I had spent 3 days laying on my couch in self-pity. But hearing Scott's story helped me get off my couch and move on with my life. See, I was there to awaken his professional soul, and in doing so, he woke mine. Isn't that cool? Scott, you got me off the couch. And I can't help think, but what's going to get you off the couch today in your speaking business? What's going to be said that's going to get you off the couch? So we go back to Kevin's original question. Why do we attend the NSA meetings? There's so many reasons. There's so many reasons. Not the least of which is our programming. We've got Jane Atkinson, who's coming up after me. And I'm telling you, Jane Atkinson is one of the best speaker trainers you're ever going to meet. And if you're visiting today, you don't know what a treat you're in for with Jane, the speaker launcher. That's why we come to the NSA meetings. If I could tell you one thing that would awaken your professional speaking soul, it would be to be vulnerable. You know, when we're vulnerable, we become human. And when we humanize ourselves, people will identify with us. And when they identify with us, you know what happens? They buy us, they book us, and they pay us. So, if you awaken your professional soul today and be vulnerable, if you get off your couch, if you make one small change, and I know you can, you will get bought, booked, and paid more.